So Taylor Swift was just on Stephen Colbert, and something that she said was super damning in a way I don't think she realized it was going to be. But during the interview, she talks about some of the criticism she received, which she really just amounts to saying people are complaining about her success, and she directly says, there are corners that are like, give someone else a turn. Can't you just go away so we can talk about how good you were? And I'm like, I don't want to. End quote. It's so interesting to me because she starts all of this by saying that people are criticizing her or saying, give someone else a turn. That's really specific verbiage. And it's interesting to me because the people criticizing Taylor Swift, such as myself, aren't complaining about her success or like in her being successful. We're pointing out the ways in which she mistreats other artists. So let's go over some of the ways in which she's mistreated other artists, just so we're all on the same page. So for starters, Taylor Swift has a well-established and predictable trend of releasing new variants of her albums whenever another artist, specifically a female artist, seems to be about to take her #1 spot in a given country. And somebody might say like, oh well, she just doesn't know or like pay attention to like smaller artists, but like she's done this to Billie Eilish, she did this to Charlie XCX. Like this is a clear pattern of behavior that she has. And these variants and like different versions of the albums aren't especially different from the base album. Like she's not doing anything interesting musically, so she can't like use that as a defense. So all of these different versions are essentially just different packaging, which makes her releasing them right whenever another woman is about to go #1 as a way to block them, kind of telling. And then there's that whole situation with Olivia Rodrigo, whenever Olivia Rodrigo, who was a super big Swiftie and really loved Taylor Swift and always credited her as an inspiration, was talking about how she was inspired by a Taylor Swift song called Cruel Summer to use more of like a shouty chorus. And what did Taylor Swift do upon hearing that Olivia Rodrigo took inspiration from her? Sued her, of course. Keep in mind, she is suing Olivia Rodrigo for being inspired by her, because she's obviously being threatened by the younger singer-songwriter. And she's suing her for being inspired by something that in no way originated from Taylor herself. And hell, even like a decade ago in that whole situation with Katy Perry, when she seemed really, like they had this like really weird feud or beef going on that like we didn't really understand why it started, because after all, the only connection that they had was the fact that Katy Perry was dating Taylor Swift's ex-boyfriend. And not to mention throughout her career, anytime she's like tried to like slightly pivot in the vibe of an album, if you actually listen to it, she's just stealing like what a smaller artist was doing. The way that Taylor Swift moves and the way that her brand interacts with other artists is not only just shitty, it's anti-music. Which is why it's so interesting to me that she characterizes people criticizing her for the way that she treats other musicians as her saying, give someone else a turn. People aren't upset with Taylor Swift because she's successful and she's not giving anyone else a turn. They're upset with Taylor Swift because she's using that success as an excuse to trample over other artists. And that's what makes her framing this as people wanting her to give someone else a turn so fascinating to me, because this isn't about somebody getting a turn, because like no matter how big you are as an artist, you shouldn't be moving in a way that fucks over other artists and moving in a way that is inherently anti-music. That just doesn't make sense. But Taylor Swift hearing people criticizing her and then somehow interpreting that as, oh, they want me to give somebody else a turn, is so fucking damning onto like who she is and like how she perceives what the average person would do. Because that would imply that she couldn't conceive that somebody could have her level of success and not be fucking over other people. Morality and fair treatment is almost like something that people have to put up with because they don't have the level of success to do, or rather to behave how they actually want to behave. And especially considering specifically the way in which she will release different album variants as a way to block other artists from going #1, and she says, give someone else a turn. But like, this isn't about giving someone else a turn, this is about you not stealing somebody else's. And of course she follows this up by saying, can't you just go away so we can talk about how good you were? And I'm going to turn this into a really quick lesson in communication. So whenever somebody's trying to persuade you of something, especially like any form of propaganda, which this is, in particular isn't propaganda, but keep an eye out because that's happening a lot these days. But what an incredibly skilled persuasive communicator will do is that they won't actually present the idea that they're trying to persuade you on, they will presuppose it. A presupposition is basically what has to be true in order for an utterance to make sense. So it's so interesting to me that she's framing her haters as saying, can't you go away so we can talk about how good you were? Because that inherently presupposes that everybody who's criticizing her only has issues with her current album and not any of her previous works. And her going through that route is completely predictable, because with her latest album, even like the diehard Swifties were like, yeah, this isn't it. So obviously she knows that everybody's hearing a bunch of criticism of her album, so she's reframing every single criticism of her as being like as of late, because it's how good you were. Like, people who are criticizing Taylor, like by and large, other like outside of her fan base, if we're being honest, aren't saying that, oh well, she just used to be phenomenal and now she's trash. Like, Taylor, the only time anyone has ever said that you were good was whenever you were biting off of another artist's style, like blatantly ripping other people off. This is strategic framing, and that really, this entire thing reminds me of the other dude on here, Mr. Jones, whose entire account is basically going over how Taylor Swift is a covert narcissist. Because even whenever she's bringing up people's criticism, one, talking about trampling over other artists as people wanting you to give someone else a turn, and two, presupposing that all of your haters actually, like, they at least like my old work, obviously, you know, the work that, like, I kind of was, like, low-key stealing from other people. She refuses to contend with the fact that some people might actually just not like her work. Which is so crazy to me, because if you actually had any faith in your own work as an artist, you wouldn't feel the need to release 80 million different album variants as a way to block other people to from going number one. Like, you would have enough faith in your work if you genuinely believe that you were a good artist. That's what makes it so interesting that she follows this all up with by saying, like, her response to all of her criticism is her saying, I don't want to give somebody else a turn. I don't want to go away so you can all talk about how good I was. Because this implies that she thinks by virtue of her, like, not wanting to, like, be a decent person, especially in terms of being a decent fucking musician, that, well, she doesn't want to, therefore she shouldn't have to. And especially with her dismissing people criticizing her as, like, them wanting her to go away so they can talk about how good she was, like, that really just reveals that she doesn't feel like she should have to keep meeting a certain standard of quality for her music. Never mind actually, like, evolving and, like, developing as an artist. Like, she feels at this point she should be able to, like, give y'all just absolute garbage, and y'all should just be fucking grateful that she's giving you anything at all. Because even in the way that she's spinning and completely misrepresenting all of the criticism that she's getting, like, she still reveals who she is just utterly and completely. Like, she just can't help herself.